Hello and welcome to Lindsay's History of Cooking. Today we're going to be cooking scones, so let's start right out. Scones are actually thought to have originated from Scotland, starting in the 1500s. They were made with oat and probably were not as sweet, and were also made over the fire with a griddle. Today, they're actually enjoyed oftentimes with tea, which was a relatively, at the time, recent introduction into Western culture. Now, actually, what I want to get into more is this relationship between English scones and tea, because oftentimes, English scones were served alongside tea in England. The afternoon tea, also referred to as low tea for the tables that it was served on, which is similar to coffee tables today, was actually popularized in the 1800s, the mid-1800s, by a duchess named Anna. Anna was the 7th Duchess of Bedford. Even though Anna is usually the one who's cited as the popularizer of the afternoon tea, it was probably part of a gradual shift that was beginning to take place as mealtimes were changing. Oftentimes, what had happened before was that dinner was served earlier in the day, in the afternoon. But as dinner slowly started to become more fashionable at a later time, there was more of a gap in between lunch and dinner. So after having a lighter lunch that was probably similar to a snack plate in today's standards, or Lunchable, I guess, Anna would start to get hungry at around 4 p.m. So she started to ask her maids to serve her a nice tea set at around 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Now this tea set would include tea, sugar, cream, but it also would include scones and other sorts of cakes and treats. Soon, Anna began inviting her friends, and it became a social hour. This social hour ended up becoming highly respected, with in the 1880s many women dressing up in long gowns, hats, and gloves to go and enjoy tea with their friends. Now, tea in home was part of a larger shift that was happening in English culture at the time, as more and more people were brewing tea at home and not visiting tea shops, which had once previously been the main host to tea time. Now, this change was not welcomed by all. Some, probably men, were worried that this change from tea being in shops to being into the home, a decidedly feminine sphere, would lead to poor health and to more gossip, and they were worried at what this would signify for the health of English society. But nevertheless, this trend persisted, and soon it became a staple in many people's homes. Now, afternoon tea, or low tea, was actually meant for the higher classes. For the lower classes, they had something of their own called tea time, or high tea. It essentially followed the same rules. And for low tea, what would happen is that oftentimes they would meet together at 4 p.m., they would be gone by 7 p.m., and then they would be served dinner by 8 p.m. Sometimes dinner would last until 10 p.m. Returning to scones and their connection to tea, this was basically a staple in any type of tea that you had. Scones were served right next beside it. Scones were often served with clotted cream and jam of some sort, the big debate being whether the cream comes first or the jam. Nevertheless, scones have remained popular and are often enjoyed right alongside the same clotted cream and jam that has been accompanying it for decades, for centuries at this point. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make and the history of scones. Please join me next time as we look at conchas. Thanks, everyone.